I recently spoke about a video by a fellow YouTuber talking about the pros and cons of buying and selling guitars online. Then another one crops up by an even better known YouTuber, one we all know. His name's Phil McKnight, but this was on what appears to be a second channel, Know Your Gear. And the video is entitled "Used Gear Market is Oversaturated." And the caption on the video is "Struggling to Sell Gear." So this seems to be a prevailing theme in the guitar community, particularly those who work and sell, collect, buy and sell, excuse me, guitars. One thing that I agree with most of the things that were said on the video. This is a very savvy industry insider who has owned a shop and knows the ins and outs of the business from both a commercial seller and also a private seller. So I expect there to be a certain level of expertise, and there is. One thing that I found interesting towards the beginning of the video is he made the claim that if you're trying to sell a guitar and it doesn't sell right away, it'll never sell. In other words, if you have a listing up and it just sits there and people see that, they lose faith in your whatever it is you have to sell, and it's not going to sell. It's really the only thing I disagreed with. I think that there are guitars that hang around on all the auction sites that are clearly overpriced. You see them there for months. The seller obviously is not in a rush to sell it. They leave them up. They want to get that amount. They're dogged, and they just sit there. However, I don't think that is always the case. I've had instruments that just had to wait until the right buyer came along. In other words, I put them up for what I thought was a fair price for the instrument, and they may have sat there for a long time. They may have been on Facebook Marketplace or eBay for a long time. It's usually the brands that people aren't familiar with, but they're still reasonably good models. Like back in the day, I used to sell those Idlewild guitars from Monoprice that were, had the solid cedar and spruce tops. I don't think they're around anymore. I used to sell the IYV guitars, which are not too well known here in Britain. I used to sell all kinds of, and still do, all sorts of unknown branded guitars, or OEM branded guitars, secondary branded guitars, that sort of thing. And people are sort of very suspicious of brands they don't know. I mean, Gibson, Fender, Martin, Ibanez, Alvarez, Takamine, those will sell right away. The name will sell it. The brand will sell it. People recognize that and they trust those brands. But you go outside of that collective, and often you're met with skepticism. People presume that they're terrible, that they're crap. And there is a lot of really poor quality instruments that are coming from lesser branded or no branded instruments, but that doesn't mean that they're all bad. I've had some really nice solid top instruments that have good parts, that sound great, that play well, nice fretboards, well set up, really good bargain guitars, and they sometimes wait until someone's ready to take the plunge on it. But they will sell. So I didn't quite agree with that portion of it. There are many reasons why guitars sit and take a while to sell, and usually it's because they're not well known in that particular market area, or there's a downturn in the market. Sometimes you might have to adjust the price, come down a bit, but there's never anything I've ever had over the years that never sold. I mean, they always sell in the end, and sometimes it takes a bit of patience. This is true also of odd guitars or odd instruments. I sold a couple of Asian folk instruments that took a while. Just need the right person to come along who wanted that particular instrument. I've sold many violins and cellos that took a while because they cost more than the entry-level budget instruments that most parents are willing to pay when their kids begin to take lessons for that instrument. And then as they learn about the instrument and they get more and more information, they suddenly realize, oh, that actually is a good deal. It's much better than the Stentor or the entry-level one that my kid has. So sometimes it's just waiting for the market to catch up, waiting for somebody has that particular need. But there are lots of things, as he rightly pointed out, that sit around online because the person wants too much. They're being unreasonable about the value, the resale value of that particular instrument. And, I haven't been on eBay for a while, but I remember when I was checking every day, I was aghast at how long some things, were listed for sale. Months and months and months, sometimes years. And you'd see them, and you go, wow, that person's had that for sale for, a couple of years now. And it's the same price. What's going on? So there is that as well. But, just because you don't sell something right away doesn't mean you're not going to sell it or there isn't a buyer out there for it. So I slightly disagree with that portion. Everything else in the video was very, very commonsensical about the state of the market, about, the market pretty much being saturated in all areas. Many thousands and thousands of instruments were pumped into the market, particularly through the COVID years, where lots of people took up playing because they couldn't do anything else. Their lives were on hold a little bit. So there was a massive sort of insurgency of new players. That sort of died back a little bit, and now you've got sort of a flooded marketplace. There are more guitars out there trying to be sold than really people need. And then there's, of course, the belief that guitar-oriented music is on the decline, that rock is on the decline. I don't quite believe that. I think that there are many areas of music, streaming sites, radio stations, scenes, local scenes where guitar music's being played. There's lots of very, very talented guitar players of all stripes, all over the internet, all over YouTube and TikTok. So I still think there's plenty of guitar music to be had and plenty of reasons to play the guitar or to sell a guitar. But I do agree that the market is generally oversaturated and that there is probably too much supply to meet the demand currently. So you just have a lot of instruments and a lot of lesser known branded instruments that are sort of clogging up all the auction sites. You can go and spec out an instrument right now and have it made, have 1,000 of them made with your branding on them, and release them through all of the AliExpress, Alligates, DHgate type marketplaces, and put 1,000 guitars into the world yourself. You could do it if you had the means to do it. You could do that, and a lot of people have and do that. Particularly YouTubers. A lot of people have dabbled. All those instruments are out there. They're all floating out there. I think of sometimes all the instruments I've put out into the stratosphere over the last 25, 30 years. It must be in the thousands. And some of them are probably still in good playing order and have cycled through a few different users. Well, there's lots of people like me doing it. So the marketplace is definitely flooded. So all very good advice, as usual, from the Know Your Gear man. All very sensible stuff. and we're all saying kinds of the same things. There are some slight differences in some of our ideas, but we're all saying the same things about the state of the market. And whether it's a buyer's market, a seller's market, a collector's market, or if everybody's hanging on to their stuff because you can't get the resale value. These trends tend to get echoed and repeated across all the different channels, and you'll see many videos on them. So yeah, we're all dealing with it. Will it change? Probably not drastically in the near future. I still think there's plenty of good deals and instruments to be had, and I still think if you're smart, if you're clever, if you're discerning and you're patient and you're reasonable, I still think that if you like buying and reselling guitars, that the opportunities are there. But it is always a gamble. You're always likely to be wrong on how you assess a buy and then a sale, and so those margins might shift one way or the other, usually to your chagrin. But that's part of it. That's part of the deal. If you want to be a speculator in any market, that's just the way it goes.